We have invited some of our speakers today and yesterday to come together to discuss the role of designer and design itself in building a better future. We welcome on stage once again Professor Valsecchi, Francesca Valsecchi from Tongji University in Shanghai, Mr. Rama Gheewaro from the Royal College of Arts in London, Mr. Pieter from Circle, the Netherlands, and Ms. Maggie Wong from Underman Thompson, Hong Kong. We're delighted to have Mr. Darren Chukri, founder of Managing Director of HK Initiative, again to moderate this panel. Welcome the panelists and Mr. Chukri.
It's certainly been an amazing 2 days, and how do we wrap all this up? There's, every session I listened, there was something I took away. And then there was the next session, another point, and there's so much. And I want today to get your guys' personal insight as to what you took away, across the different speakers, the discussions you have, and why it's so important that design is playing the role it is to bridge the gap between, the complex challenges that we face in society. So quickly, who's going to start? The biggest takeaway that you've had from the last 2 days, Rama. People first. That was my people first.
It's actually in the title of the conference, knowledge. I think there is a lot of knowledge that we have, a lot of knowledge that we share, a lot of knowledge around creativity and the power of it. And I think, I'm gonna go back to the talking point of design making every conversation better. So it's something that I feel, and it was absolutely reinforced here. And the takeaway that I sort of walk away with is we have a lot of knowledge. It's called Knowledge of Design Week. It's about the translation into action. And I think that was the conversations I was certainly having outside, was how do we make sure that we're not just virtue signaling I don't think we were doing that on stage, but how do we ensure that conversations don't stop at 5:30 and you go back to 500 emails? How do we ensure that this knowledge is consciously and actively translated into something that makes a difference?
Well, it's a mindset, correct? It's behavior change, mindset. And I also think, Pieter, you talked about the designers in Europe. There's a word that they call themselves now. What is that?
Well, yes, they call themselves, at least they all want to be a change agent. And I think that is the same here. So no matter the discipline or the sector they're in, everybody was talking, okay, can I bring something to society that makes society look better? And everybody is convinced that that is the role of the designer, but how to play that role, what is important? Are you first going to imagine how the future looks like, or are you just start working somewhere? And I think that is a very good debate, and it's also good to learn from different sectors and also from different perspectives how you can, ignite that process.
But they call themselves change makers,
yes.
Right? Get-go. I'm a change maker. Right? Isn't
exactly.
that an interesting behavioral way to approach it?
It certainly is, and it's also good because that is confidence, and it's also a positive and energy-bringing aspect. So yes, and I think that is also the role of designers.
Yesterday we said, what is the definition of design? And the first one was, design was here to solve complex problems. Design was about communication. And it was interesting, aesthetics was far down the line. And from that perspective in communication, how important is communication playing across all sorts of different designers, mixing them with the business, with the stakeholders? What's the key to success?
I think it's a world of collaborations. So communication definitely plays a key role in bringing people together, especially nowadays. It's getting so complex with the emerging technology. We are not even sure how to use it in a lot of time. And I just had a discussion outside about how do we clear the right issue that we face every day. So I think there's no definitive answer all the time. So it requires communication and collaboration. So that's why we're having this open dialogue to ensure that everyone is on the same page and we can actually get going, kickstart.
Francesca, tomorrow, what do you take away? What's going to change about you?
Well, there is more to do, I think, like more action and I think like this idea from talking and then and taking some decision and doing maybe smaller things, but that can be activated right away, and then we can see a transformation right away, and then we can continue in this process. I think, from my experience, also there has been like a lot of design in terms of like planning of big systems. And I don't think that systems can be planned too much, or maybe now is the time to just like radically produce this transformation. So try to think about ways to do that.
How do you stay focused? To me, there's so much happening, so much transformation changing the world so fast. We've got to learn so much. How do you keep on a focused path?
Well, I had another remark, and that's about complexity. Because I think everyone who was on stage was able to make his or her topic very not complex. So Rama with just a triangle with 3 elements in it. And then it became very clear. The guy's talking about XR. Well, I don't know that much about it, but after they had explained, it was pretty clear to me. So I think we should not only focus on the complexity, but also on how designers can make it less complex and very much applicable. And I think everybody was succeeding in that.
What's the challenges that's blocking a positive path forward? That's an open question. You had that answer right there, Rama. That was the one. I saw it in your eyes.
I was just thinking what you were saying. I think it was Oscar Wilde who said, I'm writing you a long letter because I haven't got the time to write a short one. And that's something that, when we started our center, our intentions was written on a 10-page document, and it took us 3 years to get it down to 1 sentence. I think these things do take time. Simplicity is an undertaught, undervalued kind of concept. So things are complex because we make them complex, but a simple intention just needs to be an intention. And I think, you said it beautifully.
What's your 1 sentence?
For the center, it's to use design to improve life. That's it.
Well, there is something about, it's true that things are complex because we make them complex, but that's, I think, a part of complexity of making things more complicated and kind of like blurry or entangled. But things are complex because they are related to one another. They are absolutely in connection. And so I think, in that sense, working on smaller parts and just placing a role and understanding the connection could actually, it doesn't make the system less complex, it just make the complexity more clear and actionable. So I think like this is like going on like simplifying that sense. So like becoming actionable in that sense, I think it's key.
Then I guess technology plays a big role. As we discussed before, it actually automates a lot of the tasks that you don't want to do, or which is repetitive, or something that maybe it's better to give it to the machine so that we can all focus on the more important one, simplify things, making things better for the world.
I think it's with Ling Fan, he was talking about that, right? It was almost like he built that relationship.
Human-machine
personal relationship with the machine.
With the machine.
The way he talked about it really was. And as I'm using ChatGPT or chatbots, I find myself yelling and screaming at a chatbot. Why? And I'm like, it's how do we interact with technology on a human level, right? Before it's just a machine. But this is what happened in Skynet, in Terminator as well, right? So what do we have to do to keep a human-centric approach as the technological revolution is taking over in AI and everything? What role do we play or need to play?
I think they are not, just to me, they're not like two opposing forces. They're not mutually exclusive. Actually, I think they are twos. And it depends on how we human make good use of it. So we are in a sort of collaborative relationship rather than it's not like me or you or it's going to exclude each other.
Maybe the way that we interact with technology can make us reflect on how we also interact with other humans, like kind of reflect on the behavior itself. And so in this way, maybe spending some effort in improving that.
Don't we walk down the street like this?
Well, maybe that's not the only technology that we are talking about. Maybe if that would be reflected a little bit more, then people maybe could just like, sometimes when you realize that you're doing that, maybe you just like put the phone in the pocket and finish the message later. I don't know.
How do we move forward into a people first, as you said, idea, purpose-driven world where, circularity is a good example. Clint, yesterday, was like, circularity, my least favorite word. And to me, it's a scary word because as you started drawing these complicated systems and a complicated infrastructure, it was also difficult to go, how do I jump on as a starting point? Do I have to know all of this complex system in order to jump in? Or where do I jump in? And how do I use that driving force to keep me on the right path?
You ask me or you ask?
Both of you.
Rama, you first. It's a complex question.
Well, we're wearing a very similar jacket.
Exactly.
So we might give each other's answers. I think there's a very simple thing with technology, with navigating complexity, with putting people first, is to start with the most unheard voices, start with the margins and move to the mainstream. So with technology, for example, one thing I've seen happening, and I really advocate, we do a lot of work in the world of accessibility, and I often say that people with disabilities are like what Serena Williams is to tennis, they are to design. And I'm going to qualify that because if you're going to design a tennis racket, you get it right for Serena Williams, it's probably right for the rest of us. For people who have visual impairments, for people who have all sorts of challenges, great applications for technology come from that inclusion. We did a project on driverless vehicles with the UK government, and one of the surprising things that came from the research is visually impaired people are actually, a lot of them were advocating to be the lead adopters. So, you may be looking at wealthy people or kind of technology-led people. So I think we sort of need to break that hype cycle of early adopters and redefine that. Look at the most unheard voices, bring people in.
Yeah, I have a total other answer to this, and that's on the circle methodology. So we bring in companies that want to make their first step in circularity. We provide them with a lot of knowledge. They immediately apply it in really a pressure cooker format. And in the end, they have a result. And the biggest compliment we can get is two things. One, okay, we thought it was very complex, but now it's clear and it's quite simple where to start. And the other thing is, well, we collaborated with a lot of people and it was also fun. And so just by starting, not asking too many questions, we realized, well, we make this step. So that's also a way, just jump in and like you had on yours, just do it.
How do we bring the different stakeholders together in this? I think that was a conversation a lot of people had last night was, we realized the importance of design in the process. And we realized that we have to the goal is to bring these different people around, but we're like, then who does that, right? Especially in company scenarios where you've got marketing, you got your CFO, you got the different people. How do we bring this together, and what are those key steps that we need to take? Even if we're not in that position, shouldn't we take it as a personal charge each day? What's your lessons?
I think it's about having a common vision that aligned everybody, because obviously every person comes from different background and they have their own KPI agenda, especially in a business organization. But then there surely will be, we need to find a common ground, which is the shared vision, and that can bring people together.
I think sometimes it's a little bit of subterfuge because I'm just riffing off some of the examples that I've heard said, and some of the things that were part of the research for the book. But people in companies did things like book clubs as a way of actually reverse mentoring, which is listening to people who are not normally in positions of decisions or power, to use that old-fashioned word. But actually, it's through the metaphor of a book club, and those sort of things have grown. And one of the things we were, talking about in the green room up there, the meet and mingle room, was how might we sort of share a pool of resources as to what these things are? How have you brought people together? How have you done it? How can we learn from each other? And I think that's a design project in itself.
You said the most important part was about leading with empathy. And I want to push a little bit on that. Is that just a buzzword? What does that take away? And is that my reality or their reality? How do you define empathy that puts it into a real case?
So I will probably get down on my knees and pray every night that empathy does not become a buzzword. But there is a danger of that. I think by itself it's not enough, and that's why we talk about clarity and creativity sort of being, if empathy is a fuselage, they're the wings. You've got to triangulate. I think almost anything that becomes a buzzword can have the life sucked out of it, but the intention of it can be there. So I don't think it's a buzzword, but certainly people, it's a bit like a toddler discovering their navel. It's the most amazing thing on the planet, but you don't quite know what it does. And one of the things I think we need to do, design is a bit like that for many organizations. So I've just got a picture of a toddler playing with their navel. But how do you deploy it? How is design most usefully briefed? And it's ditto with empathy.
How do we bring inclusivity a little bit more into this equation as well? Across generations even. It seems like the generation gap is growing even wider and wider and wider. What is it going to take to help bring a focused approach back?
Well, Rama was talking about looking in the mirror as a leader, and I think there's one other thing, at least also very important, and that's listening.
Yeah, I was thinking about
And I think when you are a leader, you should not only tell people what to do, but you should certainly also listen. And I think in many companies there are groups like young people, like people not often listened to from other backgrounds, that come with really good ideas about change, new things, and you should listen to that. Embrace it, but make sure that you not overtake it, because the power that those people bring, you should encourage it. And I think that is also a very important thing in leadership. I don't know if you agree on that one. And then it's also very empathic if you do so.
Yeah, we speak a lot about storytelling as kind of like a designer capability and a strategic role, but you cannot be a storyteller if you don't know how to listen. And you don't have an idea about also how your story will be perceived by the people around. So I think that is a powerful, I think, energy in the storytelling as a capacity of expression, which is, of course, very, very positive, but the listening is what gives a space of lower voices or like other form of expression also to be perceived and to be included. So I think is an answer to the inclusivity problem.
What happens when you're in that tough moment? Sim, listening to him was really interesting, and what he didn't say is, he's got the lives of 1,000 people on his shoulders, and at one point, they had practically nothing in the bank, and said, that's it. But because they had purpose, and they had a value, it brought them together, their community. But how do you get past that? We're all under so much pressure, and everything's a pressure cooker. Right? How can we shift our mindset, as you say, look in the mirror or use creativity and design thinking to come out of those in a different way? Because a lot of times we run. It's so busy. There's so much happening. What do you do when you're under? I'd like to hear from each of you, actually, from a personal thing. When you're that stressed moment, how do you pull yourself out? Rama, you had an interesting one.
I can't quite remember what I said, but what comes to mind now, it's
It was. Remember, you said a negative thing, wasn't it? Somebody said, maybe it wasn't you. They said, if I say, "Oh shit, idiot" or whatever, I blame myself, right? I drop the glass, but then I take a second, and I also kind of now have to say, I've heard that word, and that's a negative approach, right?
It was every word carries a seed of change. And it was sort of inspired, I'm sort of paraphrasing Bruce Lee here, who said, got to do it in Hong Kong. But he said something along the lines of, if you say a negative word about yourself, won't it actually take root? Mm-hmm. So, this was a sort of practice. In the book, we talk about inject a little joy into your everyday and have that moment of peace. And I think the word thing was if you do something and call yourself an idiot, say 3 things that are positive. I grew a beard. That's positive. I ironed my shirt. That's another positive thing. And I was doing that this morning in the hotel. And I think the final thing just to say about stress for me is one word. It's breathe. So much of our activity is connected to breath work. And that's something that really came to me in lockdown. Someone said in lockdown you become either a chunk, a monk, a hunk, or a drunk. and I all of them. I think I went through the. It was like
Which one were you?
Depends on if it was a Monday or a Saturday. But I think part of it was deeply getting into yogic practice because I could see the wheels coming off my life. To breathe.
To me, actually, ask for help. Asking for help doesn't mean you are weak. Actually, you are strong because you can get help from other people. And I think that's so important for our mental health. So have trust in the people around you. I have trust on my team. So, we face the pressure problems every single day. So just work together and ask for help.
You're hesitating.
I have a different strategy, but I think the most straightforward is just like you go to a park and you look around you. Park is a place where usually people is quite in a good mood. And so you do nothing and you just go to a park.
It's funny you say that because we, in an urban environment here, we forget about that. And I think during the pandemic, when I realized if I just went for a walk on the waterfront,
it was just so much better.
for 30 minutes a day, completely de-stressed and changed my whole outlook. And you get used to it every day. We're working constantly, this, that. And that 30 minutes just completely realigned the neurons and the outlook, how you responded to things, how you thought. And I think that's our challenge, is that we don't connect enough with nature, even in the human connections. So funny, it's remote working. The big argument now is, do we go back to the office? Do we stay at home? And it's funny, in Hong Kong, you see people don't even talk to each other lined up in all the cubicles. Even if there's no cubicles, are they talking with each other? And I think, isn't this part of the design process, is we've got to change that concept as well. How do we get people interacting with each other? You had one thing that was important, Rama, last night. He said today, he goes, do you have your own mission? You got to have joy. You got to do purpose, what you want. Your job's got to bring joy to you, right? But he said, what's your love letter to the world? When you leave, what's your love letter to the world? That simple statement, riding home through the tunnel last night, it was just shocking to me. I go, you're right. I don't know what that is. And I think similar is this whole conference is about exploring this not only internally in our professional lives, but in the community. How do we bring change? And I think it was a fantastic, point that you've mentioned on that.
I thought you had a fantastic answer because you actually honestly said, I don't know. And I wasn't driving through the tunnel, but I was walking through a tunnel. And tunnels I love parks and tunnels for and it just really comes from that. It actually came from working with civil servants. And one of the things that they said is, design allows us to be creative and think that we are here to serve civil society. And in the conversation yesterday, so I'm re-quoting Darren as he's quoting me, you actually said, when you think of you being in love with someone or something and you write that love letter, it's intense, it's personal, it again brings to life. It kind of fires words because from your heart, because your true intention, your true power, powers up from within. And I started thinking on the way home, I always talk about design being my love letter to the world, but how does it act? How does it actively play out? So without going too existential, it was just this conscious thing of what do I devote the minutes in my years to?
Yeah, well, bringing it back to circularity or buying things. So
This is going to be your love letter to the world, right?
I don't know. No, it's not. It's my love letter, maybe. No, so if you buy something, you have a positive stimulus for only 10 minutes, and then people even are in doubt if they did the right thing. If you are in contact and communicating, collaborating with someone, it already is a higher level of involvement and also of satisfaction. But if you can really help somebody, that is the highest perceived feeling of luckiness, love. And so what do we do in our linear economy? We buy a lot, and we think that we take a lot of happiness out of that. So I think we should also then reconnect with people, and that's also about love and about helping people and being relevant in the community. So that's on a more, maybe philosophical level, and I think that's the same as what Rama is saying. That's also about, love, and not only loving yourself, but loving the planet and loving the community.
Final takeaway. What's your advice? After you take a second, think about it, and you're going to walk away tonight, the first thing you're going to say, what did you learn today? What was that interesting thing that you're going to take personally away from here?
Okay. For me, it's about to be creative and responsible. I think creative, I think everybody knows what it means. But then responsible is not just in the tech area. It's more about being responsible to be a member of this planet, member of the community. So you actually think about all the consequences that you do.
Advice is a big responsibility to give to others.
But it's that first thing that you're going to say, and when you walk out, right? That key takeaway.
Well, yeah, I think the complexity as not as a problematic aspect, but actually as an opportunity to go back to action-based practice. So it's just whatever it's difficult, then it doesn't matter. You just do your thing, and then it will connect with the rest eventually.
It's step by step.
Step by step.
Step.
Step by step. I think there is, step by step, and possibly slow.
Peter.
We should even more unleash the power of designers as a change agent.
Okay, and if you told me that, what does that mean?
So
explain that to me in different terms, that I might not, a friend that has no idea about this industry. What does that mean?
What does that mean? That all designers are, or not all, most of them I spoke and were here today, they want to bring positive change. And they're all trying to find their way to do that in a creative but also effective way. And I think we need each other in order to find that path. And so by connecting with each other, supporting each other, building confidence in that, that is unleashing that power. Is that more concrete?
That's good. Rama.
So I think it's two things. One is create consciously, because if you are conscious when you create, it's an active, conscious kind of innovation. It's a conscious act. I think in that is everything you need to know. And the second thing actually came from the two of you just now, and it's to do with listening. Listening being a kind of tool for opening up the hands and heart.
I think to me, it's about we're all designers. Design has to be across everything we do. It's no longer just this, it's a process. It's a whole outlook of life and what we take on and how we take on it and how we should promote it. So for me, it's exciting to have you all here. Thank you so much for giving us your incredible insight. And thank you all as well for joining us in the conference. And of course, BODW, remember, we have a lot of this, all videotapes, and all these sessions will all be on BODW Plus as well. So thank you all, and appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.